This is Ashley once again with Nell and Joe Crafts, and you have made it to day 4 of stitching your whimsical flower hoop. Today we are going to stitch this kind of dandelion-esque flower, both of them. The kind of stem legs here are going to be yellow. We're going to use 728, and then our little bud flowers that are on the tips, on this side they are 3832, and on this side they're 402. So we're going to focus on this guy here. And before you do that, I'm just going to remind you one more time that if you haven't stitched all of your stems and you've made it to flowers, that's just fine. Go ahead and jump in on the flowers. You can always come back and finish more stems as you have time and focus and all the things. So we are working with 3 strands of floss on this flower for both the back stitch and the French knot. I am going to start with just a knot on the end because it's a little bit easier for starting in my hoop. So we are going to work bottom line up to this middle line here, and we're just going to make a back stitch line all the way across, and then we'll do the next line. So in case you've forgotten, let's walk through back stitch real quick. We're going to come up and very first just make a straight stitch along here, being our line. Then we're going to come up that same stitch length along the line, pull our thread up, and then we're going to go back down into the end of our previous stitch. We want to get as close to that same hole as possible. It's totally fine if you don't hit it exactly. What we're looking to do is to have no gaps between our back stitches. And if you go through the same hole here for that, then you will not have any gaps. So I'm just going to continue back stitch, coming up 1 stitch length away and then back down into the end of that previous stitch all the way till I'm over here. All right, I'm here at the end, and now I'm going to repeat the process going from here back across. Now what I want to make sure happens is I want these lines of stitching to touch each other. Let me show you my finished one. You see how these lines of stitching all touch each other? That's our end goal here. So as I get closer to here, I'm going to make sure that my lines of stitching touch, even if I need to stitch off of my traced line, because we're going for making sure the end product is what we want it to do. Because remember, our lines erase so that if we're off a little bit, no worries. So again, that first stitch every time is just a straight stitch. Saves us just a teeny little bit of thread. Also helps us start on the end of the line. And then we continue stitching. So these first few, I'm not too worried about what's going on because they are the first stitches. And this is kind of a blossoming open shape. So now for this stitch here, this is when I'm trying to evaluate. Are my stitches close enough? I'm gonna touch there in the center, or do I maybe need to go down a little bit? And I think I need to go down just a little bit from my original line. So this stitch in particular, I'm gonna make sure that this needle point is gonna end up with all of the lines of stitching touching here in the middle. And this is important because it makes the flower look like it's connected to each other, which is what we want. We want the flower to look like it's all coming from this center point and opening up. Now I'll continue stitching up to the tip, and then we will repeat for the next 2 lines in. I have finished all of the back stitch, and you can see all of my stitches here in the middle, they touch up against each other. And this last one, I had to jump way down past the line. But you can also see that once it's all stitched, nobody knows. Nobody knows that we skipped off the lines, and it looks great. Now we are going to move to the little buds up above, and we're going to do 3/8, 3/2 here on this edge one on the left-hand side. When you stitch this flower over here, it'll be 402. So we're gonna make a French knot. I'm gonna start here on this left-hand side. Now, where these circles are, definitely just guidelines. You don't have to make your knot exactly in the circle. The idea is that unlike the center here where everything touches, these bud flowers, they float. They don't touch the end. We want a little bit of gap. So let's make a French knot. We're gonna make a circle with our thread. It goes from my left hand around to my right hand. If I was left-handed, I would do it the other way, okay? So thread goes from here to my hand around to my needle. And we're just gonna make little knots. We're gonna wrap the needle around one time, a nice simple French knot to start with. And then I'm gonna put my needle back down next to this hole that I have coming up. I don't wanna go into the same hole, I wanna go next to it. Then I'm gonna slide this thread down so it nests right against the fabric, you can see. And then I'm just gonna hold it in place as I then pull the rest of my thread through, and you have a French knot. So I'm gonna come up on the next one and we will talk through that one more time. There we go. Make sure I'm not caught. Okay. So we make a circle from left hand around to right hand. Wrap the thread around one time. I kind of like to hold the knot out of my way so I can see what's going on here. We're going to go down next to our thread, slide the knot to the bottom, and then I'm just gently holding it in place as I pull the rest of the knot through. And then we continue, repeat for all of these little bud flowers here. Now I want you to remember that these are flowers. They are not geometric shapes. So if one bud is a little bit bigger than another, or one's got a little funky part on it, totally fine. It is 100% okay to have your French knots look a little bit irregular. French knots are one of my favorite things. So mine tend to look pretty consistent, but it is okay if yours do not. This is our last French knot here. This flower is now complete. I'm gonna tie off my pink here, and I'm gonna jump over here, stitch the yellow, stitch the French knots, and we will be done for the day.